Nintendo and Platinum is my favorite relationship in the gaming world. I really ship those two, I like to see them together. Some people even say that Nintendo should buy Platinum, and I wouldn't have a problem with that, but I think Platinum works pretty well with their freedom. But well, since the Wii U, we saw some collaborations between them, some games that were developed by Platinum and sometimes co-developed by Nintendo, but always published by Nintendo. And this is not a long list, I only have 4 games to talk about in this video, but I decided to rank them, to see it from the worst to the best. It is just a ranking. We all know at the end of the day that videos like top 4, top 5, top 10 are just excuses so we can talk about some specific games. So let's stop wasting time and go directly to number 4.
Falco Lombardi, peppy hair, Slippy Toad, a close friend and a gifted mechanic. Now's our chance to honor my father's legacy and restore the Star Fox name.
Oh, it's ironic. The only time that Nintendo actually gave one of their IPs to Platinum resulted in what I consider the worst game. I really like Star Fox Zero from a purely emotional point of view. I remember buying it at the end of Wii U's life and having a lot of fun with the game, but it is undeniable that the game is a mixed bag. From a certain perspective, it is a super safe experience. It is another reboot of the first game in the series with characters, levels, gameplay style and story that players are already familiar with. However, the control scheme was actually a very bold decision. So the idea here was to use the maximum of the gamepad, the Wii U gamepad. So you have a cockpit view on the gamepad where you can shoot, and on the TV screen you have a third-person view to maneuver the ship. Now, eventually, you may get used to that scheme, but it is a little bit complex and sometimes it feels like it's not even made for a human being, because you have to decide when to look at each of the screens, because you can't look at both of them at the same time, even though sometimes it looks like you have to look at both of them at the same time. And listen, this is a game with 5 or 6 hours of gameplay in the first room, so there's a possibility that by the end of the game you are still not used to the controls. And it is frustrating because with each level the games get more difficult, but you are not understanding how the game works, so you are constantly making mistakes or taking damage on places that you did not want to. The visuals, the music, the dialogue, everything felt amazing at the time. It was really cool to see Star Fox finally in a modern generation in HD for the first time. That part was great, but the controls, it just felt like Nintendo was trying to force the gamepad on a classic Star Fox experience. And that's why I think the reason why this game did not turn as well as it should is more Nintendo's fault than Platinum's fault. Because I think Platinum was just developing with what they had, but it seems that Nintendo at the time, Miyamoto, was really trying to justify the gamepad. So he was acting as producer, a very hands-on producer, and it feels to me that they really forced on the developers to use the Wii U gamepad. And at the end of the day, that was simply not the best decision. I just hope that we see more Star Fox in the future. Maybe we can give a second chance to Platinum, because maybe in a different console, like for example the Switch, they could finally develop a game, a new Star Fox experience, without thinking about the Wii U gamepad.
Team, unite up! Roger! The wonderful 101!
Here we go with another Wii U gem. This period, Nintendo and Platinum were super close. I remember seeing the announcement for Wonderful 101 for the first time and I immediately fell in love with it. Just because it was super over the top, the animations, the characters, everything was so colorful and it looked very different from anything else. The whole concept of these small characters, these small heroes coming together to make weapons, It just looked amazing. I always looked at it as a Pikmin hack and slash. I was one of the few people who actually bought the game on day one, and honestly, I had a blast. It has that classic Platinum style, just like Bayonetta, but in a more cartoonish way. It's pretty evident that this was a passion project for Hideki Kamiya. You can see his mark in the whole game. And the whole idea of those small characters making some big weapons, like a sword, like a gun, like a whip, is super cool and actually added tons of variety to the gameplay, but also made it more satisfying when you have a lot of small characters and you can make a gigantic weapon to take tons of damage. And not only that, but it added a layer of strategy. But sadly, here we have another problem, and again it is kinda related to the Wii U gamepad. To make the different weapons on the game, you have to draw the symbol of the weapon in the screen of the gamepad. And listen, the idea is super fun, but in the middle of an action, to take your hands out of the control and to draw something on the screen, it just doesn't work. Sometimes the input is not recognized, so you'll try to make a weapon, but then a different weapon appears. So it just gets more and more frustrating because the game starts to get more difficult and each mistake starts to feel worse and worse. I think during a third of my playthrough, I was exhausted playing the game. Even though the story and the visuals were great and they kept getting more and more crazy. Overall, I hold Wonderful 101 very close to my heart, and I hope one day we get to see a sequel to the game that can fix all of those issues. Now things get a little more interesting. I think a lot of people would say that Astral Chain is the best collaboration between Nintendo and Platinum, and I can easily see that. The game looks amazing, the visuals are mesmerizing, and the style of gameplay feels like an evolution of what we saw before. It feels like this is modern Platinum, it's actually a step forward. Cause listen, the game is the whole package. It's not like Wonderful 101 and Bayonetta that you are always in combat from one battle to the other, but here we actually have exploration and some puzzles to solve. And because the scenarios are so cool, because the game looks so good, it is actually really fun to make those bits where you're not in combat but you are exploring and doing some other stuff in the game. I think this is the kind of game that looks so cool that even if it was bad, I would try my best to actually enjoy it. Because it truly is beautiful, the animations are great, it feels like a premium experience. But it's not just the looks, the game really is pretty good. Similar to Wonderful 101, we have a twist in the actual combats, because you not only control your character, but its legion, who are some creatures from a different dimension, and they actually fight with you. You have this chain where the player can actually control them. So during combats you are actually controlling two characters. And I know this feels super complex, but the way that they actually did it, it's super polished and it works pretty well. I think it takes a while to actually get the hang of it, but it's not something crazy. With just a couple of hours playing the game, you'll probably understand the combat and have a good time with it. So in general, the game really shakes the Platinum formula. It feels and plays very different from Wonderful 101 and Bayonetta. But why it is in the first place on this list? So although I enjoyed Astral Chain, I think the game goes way too long. I think it starts to feel a little bit repetitive from the middle to the end. So yeah, I like the game, I really recommend it. I think it's one of the best experiences on Switch, but it is not fully enjoyable from beginning to end, unlike the first place on our list.
Did you miss me?
It's hard to beat this one in my heart, like, it's such a great game. The first Bayonetta was already considered like the magnum opus of hack and slash, just super fun to fight, to make tons of combos. And Bayonetta 2 is super similar to the first one, and that's awesome. It managed to fix some of the small issues that I had with the first game, like the dark filter and the convoluted story. So when I played the second game in the series after playing the first one, it felt like a breeze. As I said, enjoyable from beginning to end. A more colorful look, beautiful places to visit, a super fun combat, and of course a great new haircut for our protagonist. The combat is super similar, literally the same buttons, the same style, but we have something new here, the Umbra Climax, which is basically a special that makes Bayonetta more strong for a while. And it is just super fun, it makes it even more satisfying. And it's not even the controls, but the actual level design of the game is really good. Like, it's super fun to play each of the levels, each of the battles are super enjoyable. I had such a good time with the game that I even replayed some of the levels, something that I never did in Bayonetta 1. So Bayonetta 2 is super similar to the first one, but managed to be even more fun. I think it's a similar situation to Mario Galaxy 1 and Mario Galaxy 2, if you want a comparison here. It's really similar in that sense. Now imagine how excited I am now that Bayonetta 3 is soon coming out and the game is looking amazing. I'm super excited to see how Platinum will make this series more perfect than it already is. And it's a super important moment also for the Bayonetta series, because Bayonetta 2 came at the Wii U. And we all know that the Wii U was not a success, so of course the game flopped a little bit. But now with Bayonetta 3 coming at the best moments on Switch Live, I have really high hopes that the series will manage to get to a broader audience. And that's the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave in the comments your ranking for the Platinum and Nintendo collaborations. I think it's a rare opportunity to talk about some of these games like Wonderful 101, I don't see a lot of people talking about that. So feel free to share your opinion and I'll be curious to see what you guys think. And that's it, until next time, bye!